Hey, Mario.
Hi,
I
everybody.
I am going to take this step of calling this meeting to order to simply move business along. First item on the agenda is, if anybody remembers it, am I correct, Cynthia? Because I don't have an agenda. I looked at it, but it's not in front of me right this moment. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of our meeting and of our August meeting. Am I correct,
That's
Cynthia?
correct.
May I have a motion to approve, please? Steve moves to approve. May I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shamim. Are there any suggested corrections? Are there any objections to the unanimous approval of the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes are unanimously approved. What's next on the agenda, Cynthia?
Sorry, I just got a text from Tony. Should be on in a few minutes.
The approval of the finance and grow. Oh, you did the minutes, then review the financials is the next thing.
Okay, let's do a review, begin a review of the financials of where we are. It'll take a while, leaving aside the fact that I don't have my cheat sheet, so I'm relying on Cynthia. It's hard to get our heads into this and our arms around it because we haven't been together since last August. So, Cynthia?
Sure, and I want to apologize. I realized that I forgot to throw some page numbers on the financials, but hopefully that will be okay. I'll probably just run through the highlights.
Please.
So you have your cover sheet that you see every quarter. I'm just going to jump to basically page 4, which is the statement of revenues and expenditures. And so you'll see under percent of adopted budget under Yukon, we get all Yukon's, just remind everybody, we get all Yukon's money up front for the fiscal year. And then the town's money comes in on a quarterly basis. We will start our membership drive in January or February. So that's why there's a low percentage of what we received there. And then you can see our fund balance obviously is high because this is only 1 quarter into the fiscal year. So that's about it on that page. The next page is our fund 270 fund. So this is where money goes for the events for the year. And we did update this in terms of providing an expenditure budget to Alicia Ducharme in the finance department. So you can see what our budget is for 2022, and then you can see what our balance is of September 30th, 2021. That probably includes most of the festival expenditures. It would not include winter welcome income and expenditures since that event was December 4th. I'll just keep moving along unless I see a hand or somebody yell out.
Okay, and again, hitting the high spots, the things that really stick out at you, that would help us.
Yeah, that's pretty much all I'm doing. So
Cynthia, remind me so obviously, you know, we have expenditures exceeding revenues. Remind me how, and it probably varies depending on sort of event, et cetera here, but funding, the revenue sources for these things, are they kind of many and varied and few and far between, or?
So most of these are based on, well, 99% are on sponsorships.
Yep.
Or maybe even 100%. So we go and solicit funds from past sponsors, new sponsors. We also have a commitment from the Oaks and Oak Tree Capital and Hart Realty. So like for Winter Welcome this year, all 3 major property owners contributed to Winter Welcome.
Okay, but like for instance, the movies and the summer concert series, it doesn't show a lot of revenue. Are there revenues to offset those this year, or did we kind of just have to front it this year without sponsorships? Or?
Yeah, so if you look at the balance and how much is in there of September 30th.
Yeah.
So these are just the revenues that came in the last quarter, I believe. So We're in the black completely if you look over at what our balance is.
Yeah, no, definitely in the black over.
Oh.
I guess where I was just looking at the change, and which is probably not the right way to interpret it, but so I was looking at like the balance as of July 1 and then looking at the balance into September. And, obviously, I think I understand what you're saying, that the revenues, like for instance, to support the movies was probably collected before July 1. And so then as we look ahead to next movie season, the same thing would happen. And so it would be replenished. We're not just on this glide path down where eventually our balances become zero. So I got it now.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a little confusing because the expenditure budget is based on our calendar year events and then this is based on a fiscal year. So,
Okay, I got it now. Thanks.
okay, sure. So then our town square project, that's just there where we have some funds, about $12,000 left to do various improvements on the town square. The next page is the store center project analysis. We have about $66,000. Sorry, I'm just gonna admit, Tony, left to be paid back to the town to pay back itself. I assume that will happen this year. And I think those of you that have been here for a while know that that's been every year that's been moving toward closing that out. Then I'm just going to move to the parking. So this again is through September 30th. So you see the net income for the year is about $20,000 again through September 30th. When we get the December financials, you're going to see a significant decrease in revenue. And that's because we changed from an Amano system to a flash system for the access into the parking garage. So because there were, as you can imagine, a few glitches, the gates had to be open for transient parkers. So I've already received the November report from Laz. So that's sort of a preview of what's to come. This is a reminder, does not affect what Laz is required to pay to the town. That never changes. It only goes up, and whatever they get in revenue, they would have to cover it. So it doesn't affect the town at all.
What are the system changes though, Cynthia?
So they changed. So, Shameen, when you come in the garage and you have the gate, so they went to a whole new, Amano's the name of the firm that was supporting that, and they're not able to support improvements and maintenance to that gate system. So the town and Laz had to go out to bid. Actually, we did it through Laz, I think. And so the new vendors Flash, and there were some glitches with the passes. Like we all had to get new passes, all the businesses, all the Oaks residents. So yeah, it just, it was supposed to go smoothly, but you know how these things go.
Right.
So they couldn't be putting gates up and down, and they had to make it easy for the customer. So they lost some revenue from transient parkers because they had no thing to put in. So,
but that does not affect what if I'm understanding correctly.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
agreement until 2030 provides for that funding.
Cynthia, I think this would be a good time to return the figurative gavel to the real mayor, not the historic mayor. And since Tony, as I've told everybody else, that this isn't its birthday, so I can't take her out to eat because we don't go out to eat, but we are bringing in takeout. Now would be the right time for us to do that. So, yeah, you're muted, Tony.
Could you hang on for a minute because I haven't been able to get the agenda called up.
Well, you can do what I do and ask Cynthia what comes next.
All right, Cynthia, what comes next?
Okay. Do you want me to resend it to everybody?
No, we have it in our emails.
Okay.
Don't you have it, Tony?
Not yet. What date was it sent out?
Well, I resent it this morning.
Oh, Lord.
So are we on review of the draft budget?
Yeah, I would
Not
like
quite
to.
yet. Not quite yet.
Until Tony's with us, let's keep making progress.
Okay.
Because you need to get to the budget, whether I'm here or not.
Okay, it's coming up.
Okay, if it's coming up, I'm gonna, you good, Tony?
No, that's the EDC packet.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was my fault, Tony. Maybe that's what I resent. But
No, this is, here we go. It's a chain of emails.
I sent it on Monday at 1:57.
Yeah, I've got it.
Got it? Okay.
It'll come in a second. I'm sorry I'm late. This has been a crazy day.
So I think normally what the committee does is it looks to a motion to accept the financials and recommend them to the full board.
All right, are we looking at the financials for the past 3 months?
Yes, well, through September 30th. Yes, we just
All
did
right.
that. Yep.
Is there a motion to accept the financials? And Shamim moves. Is there a second? Paul seconds. Any comments, corrections? All those in favor, raise your hand.
At this point, I will wish the rest of you a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful holiday season.
And happy birthday to Annette. If that wasn't too late. All right. Where do we go from here, Cynthia? It's not coming up.
So we're on the budget and I can try and share my screen if that would be helpful.
Yes, please.
If I can find where this, let's see. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you make it full screen?
Yes. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. So I can hit the highlights here too, if that's the best way. Is that how you'd like me to do it, Tony?
Yes, please.
Okay. So starting on first page, starting with the town and university contribution. So Tony, Ryan, Kyle Muncy, our board president, and Kara Workman. We met on October 20th. We discussed staffing and budget, and there was an agreement to bump up the contribution to 160,000 to help cover our continued costs. So you may recall last year I had to do some cuts, and we covered what we need to cover, and we will this year, but there is some need for some additional income. Our dues, we did actually ended up doing much better last fiscal year with about 15,000 brought in, but we're being conservative again. And we'll discuss in a little bit. Well, let me mention that, as you may recall, we went out for bid to bid for a revenue generation plan. We got one response, but that is a priority in the strategic plan. So that will be something that we'll have to discuss further, probably through this committee, if the board agrees that that's a top priority for 2022. The contribution to economic development.
Cynthia, it looked like Steve had his hand up there for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Cynthia. What was the response, the price on that? The revenue generation plan?
Oh, gosh, Steve, I'd have to go back and look at, I want to say
Even
around
just
15.
ballpark.
I want to say around 15,000.
Great, thank you.
Ironically, he contacted me today and asked what the status was. So I let him know we were still working through things with the strategic plan.
Great, thank you.
So in terms of the contribution for economic development, we put in 40,000 again. I have started to work on the job description for Mary's position. We have talked about at that same meeting in October about having that person also cover some of the admin costs in our office, and that was agreed to as well. So the main difference in our revenue is the increase of $20,000, 10,000 each from UConn and the town.
So these are proposals that will go, has UConn agreed to the increase?
Yes, in our meeting on October 29th, you all agreed to it and I sent a follow-up email. I
Okay,
didn't hear back from anyone, so I just moved ahead.
good, okay. I suppose we wait for the check to find out.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Obviously, it's a little bit different process for the town has to go through the budget process and, UConn has a different process, which is through their funding source. So, but at the staff level, that was the agreed upon amount.
Yeah, nobody seemed to have raised any significant qualms about it either.
No, I mean, we did have, as you may recall, a little bit of a conversation about long-term, what amount, what commitment to the partnership. So that's probably, that's a larger discussion too. But I think for this year, that's where everybody came down.
And I didn't sense any unwillingness on the part of university staff to continue to be part of this project.
Absolutely not. No.
Okay.
So then, under admin expenses, I don't know if this is a place to bring it up, but I'm going to bring it up. Under travel and conferences, this may be, Ryan, a question for you offline, but we are paying for 2 parking spaces in the parking garage. This was something that some may recall way back, Howard Kaufman, when the Leyland was running the garage, asked us to do. But part of me feels that, we're providing a service to the parking garage. And we do have other town employees that come in and out, and they have passes that they don't pay for. So it's just something, it's not a huge amount, but it is $63, a month. And so it's just something I want to raise, that could we have that conversation and just say, can you just let us have those 2 spaces? Shamim?
So currently you pay out of pocket, or?
We pay through the budget. So I don't pay, and Denise, we don't pay out of our own pocket. So, which is a benefit to us and appreciated. But I'm just wondering.
I would say regardless, it's completely reasonable for that to be out of this budget, given a lot of things. One point that you made, that the service you provide, and the other is.
You just went blank.
The profit margin that they're making. So this won't hurt anybody.
Yeah, and we'll talk more, Cynthia. I guess I wasn't aware of that arrangement, to be honest. You've obviously provided a brief summary of it. I think the principle of the thing being what it is, I think we can probably plan to extricate that from the budget. But yeah, let's plan for you and I to talk offline.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm sorry, my glasses, if it looks like I'm doing one of these, I am. So I apologize. So moving down to.
What about the membership issues? Are the loss of those memberships problematic for you?
So are we back up here, Tony, under dues, line 5?
No, it was under
Is that what you meant by?
travel to conferences.
Oh. I'm
But
sorry, what was your question?
part of the question here had to do for travel for conferences, and I also noticed that you had dropped some memberships. I'm wondering if this is problematic, the 2 pieces put together.
I think it'll be helpful if we're not paying for the parking. I mean, there really hasn't, for the past year with COVID, there hasn't been a lot of travel, obviously. I mean, I did drop the APA membership. It's pretty steep membership. And I really benefit more from the CETUS, the Connecticut Economic Development Association membership. I mean, Linda Painter's a member of APA. So I don't think that's a huge problem.
Okay,
At some point, it would be nice to, I mean, there's good reasons to be a member, but it's not terrible.
okay.
I have John Zaccaro, our attorney's estimate. So we brought it down to 2,000 from 3,000. He has not spent, as you can see over here, under 160, a lot of money, but he's conservative. And when it comes to legal stuff, I agree with him to try to be conservative and put in, you know, at least something, if something comes up, and you'll see kind of his rationale in the Excel sheet.
And is this a per hour charge or is this a retainer?
It's a per hour charge.
And so you really have not used him you have used him maybe for an hour over the past year?
Correct.
Okay,
I mean, some of the things that we do, like parking, Tony, is a Kevin issue. So, you know, he's following up on some parking cooperative questions. So there are some things that the partnership does that will fall under the town attorney.
I was just gonna point that out. There are things that, because the nature of the relationship falls under the town's retainer.
okay, good.
And then I have a couple of estimates from Finance Director Charmaine Bradshaw Hill. So these are the estimates for IT support and finance department support, which actually also covers HR support. So as an example, obviously they do our financials. IT helps us, you know, troubleshoot issues.
Sorry about that. Something just fell
Okay.
off my light fixture.
Uh-oh. And then HR will be helping us with the recruitment for the admin assistant position. So those are just estimates, and I think Charmaine wanted me to be clear on that. So I don't think they're going to change, you know, hugely, but they are estimates right now.
Right, and some of that's going to reflect the collective bargaining agreements and the increases in pay to non-bargaining unit members too. So that may be part of the additional cost.
Okay. Let's see. So then we get down to personnel. And so I have put in a 2% increase for July 1st. Last year, we received a 1.5% increase. We don't have it increasing right now for the new positions, since they would only, well, I guess we may need to relook at that once we get in the new fiscal year, but for right now, Alicia did not put an increase there.
Now, the pattern that we have used in the past is to base these increases on the increases that go to equivalent town staff, and the increases that were approved at the last council meeting were 2.5% for this year, not 2%. What happens if we increase these numbers to 2.5?
So two things. We're not always exactly consistent with what the
Yeah, I
town does. That 2.5 is for the current fiscal year, correct?
Current, yes.
Okay, so this 2 is for starting next year right now. So we are 1% less than the town right now, I guess.
Ryan, what is the percent for the second year of the contract?
So it's actually 2.75 in the first year and then 2.5 for years 2 and 3.
That's what I thought. So
Yeah.
in any case, 2% for the upcoming fiscal year is well below what we are offering to town staff. And I think
That is accurate.
I would like to know what the numbers are if you do that.
So Tony, do you want me to have Alicia run 2.5% starting
please.
July 1st?
Yep.
Okay.
There's no reason in the world why you and your staff should get less money than anybody else in town.
Out of curiosity, Cynthia, did you just put that request in for 2%? How did that?
I
Come on.
asked Alicia to do it at 2%. I'm always like trying to be conservative and just trying to like balance our budget.
And 2%, if you looked at historic averages, like a 10-year period, that's probably exactly where we are. Just this particular batch of collective bargaining agreements, the timing of the negotiations, certainly coincided with, as everybody knows, a period of, historically high inflation. And so that obviously moved us from where we might have thought we would have been 6 months ago to where we ended up. But yeah, I would echo what everybody else is saying, Cynthia. I don't see any reason, why, the staff and the partnership shouldn't be looking at a similar rate of increase given the high rate of inflation right now.
But the bottom line question is, what does it do to the rest of the budget? Because there's also the fringe benefit increases based on those numbers.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
I will ask her to run that and I guess, well, Tony, you and I can confer after that because I'll probably have to get this in the town budget system before our next finance committee meeting. So I may have to get sort of an okay from people to do that.
Okay, now, does this have to go to the partnership board before it goes into the budget system?
No, because we never, well, there's a couple of things that go on there. There's the whole other issue of staff evaluations. So mine is in March and Denise and Kathleen's is in April. So we usually don't have the board, give or take, we usually don't have the board approve it until April. And so sometimes we have made some adjustments and we've used our contingency if it looks like it's going to go a lot higher.
All right, well, let's take a look at what the consequences are for the increased number.
Okay, I'll work with Alicia. And then the overtime, we just started, Alicia had advised building that in, I think 2 years ago. So I do authorize some overtime for Kathleen and Denise in particular for the festival. So that's what's reflected there.
And overtime is a time and a half?
Yes.
So those numbers will also change.
The
The base salary
yes.
changes. Those numbers
Yes.
will have to change also.
Yes. Yep.
As will Social Security and other.
Oh yeah. That's why Alicia does this and not me.
Yes.
As I told someone, I'm at a high school math level. I took a statistics course in college and that's about as far as it went.
Well, it doesn't matter, but it was so long ago. It's in dark recesses of my mind.
I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't digress, but I did see somebody like, oh yeah, it was a movie with the slide rule. I was like, I remember those. Some people on this call will not, but some of us will.
I think I still have Tom somewhere around. Historical artifacts.
I couldn't use a slide ruler if my life depended on it, but I've watched enough movies to hear reference to it that I know it was definitely a thing.
There we go.
Oh, jeez.
So
I knew we shouldn't have hired somebody so young, but
I have played an Atari and I remember having a Betamax tape player in the house as a kid. So for what it's worth, I throw that out to mitigate any past statements.
you redeemed
no
yourself.
hope. No.
So I am still getting monthly updates on this unemployment issue, but the way that it works, if you see on this line right here, I think as you'll recall that we were required to provide unemployment to our former employee. And so with the federal government was covering that, and I don't think we're going to owe anything, but I probably need to go back to Department of Labor. Getting through to them was not easy during COVID. So, but I'd like to just get that off the books if we're done with that. So it is capped at a certain amount. I want to say it was about $2,000. And then health insurance, just to remind everybody, so the partnership is covering me, covering Kathleen and her spouse. Denise is covered by her husband, who is a town employee.
Does she get compensation in lieu of health care?
No, because he's a town employee. I went down that road and yeah, we made an error there about 2 years ago, and we fixed that. So yes, she's not to get payment in lieu.
Okay.
Because it's like double dipping. So under professional technical, that's the Street Sense contract. So, they'll basically be working probably over 3 fiscal years. So I tried to cost that out. I also, so for the board members at our board meeting in December, Kara Workman had made a suggestion that we add 3,000 each year to do a check-in on our strategic plan. It's a 3-year plan, but presumably we may do another one in another 3 years or 5 years. So it's there as a placeholder. It wouldn't necessarily be Street Sense, but I think the thinking was that it would make sense to have them come in and do a check-in with us. So that's what I added in that line. And then I did keep 2,500 in contingency. Just a little background on what it used to be. So this leaves us with a balance of $10,090. And again, I'd be remiss to not say that we do have a very healthy fund balance. We've been using that for the strategic, actually we haven't had to, because we saved some money by just throughout the year, we saved some money. We didn't have to dip into the fund balance so far, but I'm pretty sure we're going to have to soon. So this is our current fund balance at July 1st. This is the estimated at July 1st, 2022. And that's it.
Anybody have questions for Cynthia? Mario, you're not showing up on my screen, so if you have to speak up if you want to get heard.
No, I'm good. Nope, everything makes sense.
Cynthia, I was just gonna ask, I know we talked about this at the meeting we had in your boardroom not too long ago, but given your conservative nature, you feel comfortable that this budget will enable the partnership to move forward with everything you can realistically, I guess, dream up for the next year? We don't want to be holding you back, if we can really make some progress. So I guess that's really the question.
Well, I guess there's a couple of things, and it's a good question, Ryan. So one of the things that we're working on, and I'm going to jump ahead on kind of the strategic plan. So as Ryan and Tony and Mario and Steve know, is trying to get more financial support from the property owners. Especially the two main ones, Oak Tree and Hart. So that's a piece of the puzzle. We do have, in terms of actual projects, we still have the Nature's Medicines money, about $43,000 for the downtown. So that's an initiative that I'll be working on this spring, hopefully with Sean Basington, one of our board members, and with some of the property owners because they're interested. So yeah, I think there's a couple of things out there that in terms of additional income, potentially from the property owners and some project money that we have available. And I know that, well, then there's some other things in the ARPA money that we may be able to use to help businesses. So I think we're in pretty good shape. And again, we have a healthy fund balance. We may need to go into that if we fund a revenue consultant. But we still, I think, have a good balance. And I think again, the recommendation is to try to keep that balance fairly close to your yearly income.
I may have missed this earlier, but there was always a special fund for movies and concerts over the summer. Does that have any money left in it?
Yeah, so we did do that under the financials, the September 30th financials. So when you have a chance to look at it, Tony, it's that one's a little harder for me to bring up, but
Okay.
I
No, I
mean, we
will.
have balances in each of those events, and those are all pretty much through sponsorship. So we have to work to raise that money, and we do get money from the property owners for some of those as well, especially from the Oaks.
So are you anticipating that we will be able to raise enough money to run those programs at full steam this coming year?
That's what we budgeted for. Denise has done budgets already for the main events. You know, one of the things that we're really trying to do, working with Kara Workman, is to try to get more events, especially geared toward, as you've been involved too, Tony, towards students, and also for other people to do their own events. That still remains a little bit of an issue with insurance, and we're trying to work through that. So, and there's some low cost things, as you suggested, some games and things like that that we can do on the square too. And so, yeah, I think we'll be in good shape. And we did have some money that we didn't use, like for the concerts, that carried over because we didn't do as many last year. So the good thing about that fund is that money doesn't go away.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have questions about this proposed budget? All right. So Cynthia, you'll get a revised budget that includes the increased salaries.
Yes.
And we can sit down and talk about that and the consequences of that. And then if there are any changes beyond that, the increases, we'll have to bring it back to finance.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So do you need any kind of a motion on this?
Normally we would do a motion to send it to the board, but since we're making changes, I think unless Ryan, you disagree, this will just be with the change, the budget that I'll put into the budget module, and then we'll just go from there and then have it maybe come back to finance one more time and then submit it to the board.
Makes sense to me.
I think that, well, I'm trying to remember now, because I think that they can still make some changes in the budget up till March-ish. Does that sound right? Ryan and Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. I mean, the town's budget is always finalized last, and we're making changes within up to a couple weeks before my recommended budget goes before the council. So, and
we make changes at the council level.
well,
too.
yeah, right. I mean, I know finance, you know, I mean, they'll do whatever is needed. I know they are a little sensitive to like kind of the constant dabbling and changing things, and they kind of want you to really think through any change and then, you know, do as few touch points as possible. But under the circumstances, I would say, you know, not of concern here.
Yeah, I think my goal is to get what I need from Alicia and you know, get it in there. I mean, I'll get it in there. It's just whether I can get the salary part, but we should be able to get it done. I have a meeting with her next week too, but I'll let her know tomorrow.
Sounds good.
Okay. So in that case, the next item on our agenda is approval of the 2022 meeting dates. You guys will have noticed that if there isn't anything pressing on the agenda, we cancel meetings on a regular basis. So I don't see any point to meet just for the sake of meetings. I hope you don't mind. If you have an objection to a meeting being canceled, I would hope that you would let us know. But basically that's been my philosophy. If there isn't something that needs to be done, we don't need to do it. And if there are significant members of the committee who are unavailable, we'll reschedule as well. I mean, we do have to have a quorum, if nothing else. So
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to get you guys back. I'm trying to remember. Oh, wait, stop share. Okay, there we go. Sorry.
So then what we need is a motion to approve the proposed 2022 meeting dates. Is there a motion? Moved by Steve, seconded
I'll second.
by Mario. Any comments, corrections? I assume all the appropriate religious holidays have been accommodated, and Indigenous Peoples Day and all of those sorts of things. Any objection
Yes.
or
Sorry.
requests to amend the meeting dates? Anybody object to the meeting dates or wish to abstain? Then I declare it's been adopted unanimously. Next item is an update on the strategic plan in downtown stores.
Yeah, so I think I did talk about the strategic plan a little bit already. So the board did review it at its December meeting, and I think there was general consensus that the plan looked good going forward. There's a lot of strategies. I think there's 19 strategies that Street Sense has recommended. Sean Vasington, one of our board members, asked the team from Street Sense to prioritize within year one, and Street Sense turned around and asked me to prioritize. So we had a brief meeting with Sean and Ryan and Kyle and Street Sense about that, and we will go back to the board in January, on January 6th at their meeting. In the meantime, we do have a meeting scheduled with one of the property owners, Hart Realty, and I'm waiting on Oak Tree Capital to get their input on the strategic plan, get their input on their commitment to the partnership, you know, both generally and financially. So those are the next steps. And then we'll just start working toward implementation, probably bring back the ad hoc strategic plan committee at some point. So I think, and I know we've got all board members here except Shamim. So I think that's generally where we were. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything.
One of the questions raised was whether or not property owners ought to be added to the partnership board. Has there been any further discussion of that?
We did have some discussion about that when we had this meeting with Larissa, and I think that generally she's an advocate of that, and that will probably be part of the discussion that we have with them over one of the meetings is the 4th, and I think the other meeting we're waiting to hear. So yes, that was discussed, Tony.
Steve?
At the meeting, it was mentioned that this had been discussed in the past and that conflict of interest was brought up, and I couldn't see where that would fall. So I was just curious if anybody could kind of elaborate on that point.
I think the real conflict of interest arose during the period of construction. And I don't think those conflicts continue to exist. The one area of tension that will arise for sure is over property taxes. And the board has no authority over property taxes. So we can put that one to bed. Those of us who are on the council will hear it for sure, and so will Ryan. And if we have to go to court again over property taxes, we will go to court again over property taxes. But I think that the offer to the property owners has got to be, if you want to have a say, you've got to be on the board.
Yeah, I really like the idea, and I like the idea of tying it to them paying for membership for all of the tenants. I think that makes all of us part of this, as opposed to some tenants that are not part of the downtown partnership but are benefiting from it. And you know, then we can all really feel like we're all pulling in the same direction.
Anybody else on this? All right, any other news on downtown stores, Cynthia?
Just a couple of quick things. So Brooklyn Dumplings, what I heard today on a call is that from the property owner is that they're looking at mid-January. And I actually was walking down the sidewalk and somebody opened the door. So I was never one to miss a moment. I peeked in, and so there's definitely stuff going on in there. I think some of you know that their model is kind of these maybe they did this in the 50s, like kind of it's a little bit grab and go out of a compartment kind of thing. It's an interesting concept. So I could see some stuff going on. They've been delayed because of, you know, supply chain issues, but they should be open hopefully by the time UConn comes back.
Which space are they in?
So they're in the old farmhouse crepes.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they are waiting to get a sign approved too. So so that is definitely moving forward. And Kyle and I meet with the heart people every 3 weeks. You know, they've definitely got some other irons in the fire, but nothing definitive. So fingers crossed. And then the other folks, they didn't have too much to report, but they're definitely working hard on the Grille 86 space.
Steve?
Now that we have that amendment passed at a state level that allows us to have breweries and wineries in our town, are we working on a brew pub for that space?
I think we've got some restrictions maybe with the sort of air filtration and everything with the I think you'd have to reconfigure that space. It might be too difficult to do that, Steve.
Okay.
That was what I remember during the discussion, and you have the residences above.
Okay.
I think that was a discussion the first time around too.
Yeah.
And I think something about water as well.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's the question also about smell too. I mean, that's not a technical question, but there was some concern about that.
Yeah, I remember that too.
So
Cynthia, my attention was just split a second there. We're talking about the Grille 86 space right now.
yep.
Okay, and then did you mention anything about Ginos? Is anybody interested in that space?
I'm trying to think if that's one where no, that was, yeah. I haven't heard anything about that space lately. No.
Do I have it right that in sort of the history, which is a short history, but the history of our downtown, that's really the only space that's ever been kind of a, I guess you could say more of a date night restaurant, whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's
And-
definitely something that's
It
missing.
was always described
downtown.
as, yeah, bringing in an administrative candidate place.
Right.
President of the university used to take out of town guests there on a regular basis.
It certainly seems like, you know, this community with the college, it wouldn't be hard to support, you know, robustly support at least one such establishment, but.
Yeah,
We
I mean,
always had the Altneve, and then we had, you know, Ginos. So there really isn't that. Is that the kind of thing where you go out and you try to recruit away a restaurant from somewhere else? Like the first thing that would come to my mind would be like Victoria de Lepre up in Ellington. I would imagine the rents are a little bit different, but that's kind of that same small niche, you know, high quality, small scale space.
Did you say Trattoria Lapri? Is that what you said,
Yeah.
Steve? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. We were told by the property owners that, and this is coming, I guess, from their experience and what they think the market, that we're not going to, the big we, are not going to attract a white tablecloth restaurant to that space. Now, Ginos was not a white tablecloth, but it was closer to that than something else. I mean, I've suggested the Johnny's Tavern group, which is not Ginos, and it's not, but they've got several restaurants. I like their product. They have a variety of things. It's, so I think any suggestions, and Steve, I can mention that to them, definitely.
I don't even know if that's the right one. I'm just kind of curious, like, do
Yeah.
they go out and try to, like, are they looking for bigger chains? Like, I guess the term that I learned through all of this is credit versus character tenants.
Yep.
You know, would a character tenant work for a finer dining type? I don't know. It seems like everyone's mentioned, it's a niche that is unfilled in our town. We have Fenton on the other side of town, which is, you know, a nice place to take someone, but other than Fenton.
Has anybody approached the Brico group or the Max group in Hartford?
I feel like there was a conversation about the Max group, but it's probably been a while, so.
That sounds like a great fit. They do a lot of stuff cross promoting with like UConn too, so.
I mentioned to them, what's the group? Now I'm getting myself confused. Avert and
Treva
Treva,
and
and then
Zahara.
they do the hamburger place, right,
Yeah.
Shamim? I've mentioned
ABC,
that
yeah.
group to them. You know, so
So do they have an urgency in filling the space?
yeah, you know, we have more conversations with the Heart Group than Oak Tree. I mean, I think that they do, but they also have told us they kind of want to wait until not wait, that's not the right word. They also want to get the right fit. I mean,
Mhm.
they've had some people approach them that they didn't think were right, and they thought we probably wouldn't think they were right. So I'll give them some credit for that. So yeah, I mean, they have said they have more activity in any other Connecticut places here than any place else. So, but I think people are still struggling a bit. So.
I feel like we also hear though, like, oh, we think we're gonna have an announcement. It'll come soon, but we're not quite there yet. And that was like 3 months ago and 6 months ago. And so, I mean, I'm not blaming anybody, not blaming them, but it feels like maybe we're not always getting straight information because there's always like, wait for it, some really good thing we're about to announce, but we're just not ready. And then like time passes, like, yeah, there was never anything that really happened. So I don't know.
Mario,
Cynthia,
you had your hand up.
yeah, I was just curious. I mean, were we ever privy to the obstacles that they were faced with as far as, you know, what seems to be the challenge in getting a restaurant, or as to why Ginos left, so to speak?
You know, I mean, I had my own conversations with the manager of Ginos when they left back in March 2020. Is that when it was? May 2020?
Right, just after the pandemic started, when UConn canceled graduation.
Right. I mean, there was no indication, you know, they weren't doing as well as they had wanted to, but there was no indication prior to that they were thinking about leaving. Because when they closed their Southington one, you know, I asked that question. So, you know, I think it's a combination of things. They had one group that they were supposed to meet with and never showed up and never called last week or 2 weeks ago. I forget when it was. So you get some of that too. And I don't think it was a fly by night kind of place. So I don't know. You know, I try to like keep up with that world, but but sometimes things aren't looking good and then things look better and vice versa. You know, it's hard. It's really hard I do think that there's a new person involved and I really like his style. He's very straightforward. So I think Kyle and I have been pretty pleased with those conversations.
One thing I would suggest, and this was even when we first started Store Center, but maybe these people go back to Putnam and check out the food scene there because it's thriving. And there's got to be a way to bring something back here.
Yeah, and I think some of that gets to what Steve was referring to, kind of the character versus credit.
Mhm.
And I think Shamim, during the strategic plan process, Larissa Ortiz with Street Sense mentioned that to us. They're still paying the mortgage. And some of these places are no longer paying a mortgage.
Mhm.
They've long paid off that space, that building. And, she really just kind of laid it out for us. And I thought it was good to hear it from an outside perspective.
When will the mortgage be paid off?
I don't know.
It's not that exactly. It's if you own your space versus if you're paying rent. And if you're paying
Yeah.
rent, then, what's the owner willing to take for rent versus what are their aspirations, right? And how motivated are they? It comes down to supply and demand, and there hasn't been enough pressure on the market pressure, not our pressure, but market pressure on the owners for them to want to decrease the rent prices in there. If they saw that they weren't getting any calls and they weren't getting any vacancies and they were starting to, people who had leases weren't paying, then there would probably be more pressure on them to lower the rent. But if, Amazon's paying even though they're not there and they have other people who are doing the same, it's different. The financials can look very different to them than the optics look to us, right? So we see empty storefronts, but if they're still getting the rent checks, there's not as much pressure on them to
Mhm.
fill those spots.
Yeah, they did say that, some of the sales have definitely rebounded for some of the businesses, which is a good thing, obviously. So
We wait and see.
yeah, I think these conversations, having Kyle involved with some of these conversations has been really good, with his UConn hat on too. So they understand how important that piece is to this as well. So, but I will definitely relay some of the suggestions that you all had, not just to that group, but to the other group as well.
All right, is there anything more on the partnership strategic plan in downtown?
I don't think so.
All right, then that's the end of the agenda. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up? And a motion to adjourn is in order. Is somebody going to make one?
So moved.
Moved by Shamim, seconded by Steve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Have a good holiday, everybody.
Happy holidays,
You
everybody.
as well.
Take care.
Take care. Merry Christmas.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.